We're talking linebackers, finishing up our 2024 NFL Draft rankings. Williamson's top linebackers in this class, sleeper linebackers, and what's going on with this contract situation, Stefon Diggs and the Houston Texans, Mailata extension, and more on today's episode of Peacock and Williamson.
NFL analyst Brian Peacock and former NFL scout Matt Williamson bring you expert NFL analysis every day in less than 30 minutes. Get an inside look into the NFL on the field and in the front office. With elite breakdowns, next-level analysis, and in-depth information only for the real NFL fans. This is Peacock and Williamson, and it starts now.
Welcome to the Peacock and Williamson NFL Show. Brian Peacock alongside Matt Williamson, as always, at BD Peacock, at Williamson NFL. Thanks, everybody, for making us your first listen on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We love the everydayers. We love it when you're all subscribed. Please hit that subscribe button. Really helps us out. The thumbs up if you like the pod. And, of course, you can find us everywhere you listen to your podcasts. We are talking linebackers today, going through draft rankings here recently on the podcast. And today's episode is linebackers, off-ball backers. And it's the last group of our draft rankings. We'll probably check in a little bit later in April just to see if there's been any changes in these rankings as we go through and get ready for the NFL draft. Got mock drafts upcoming and tons of fun. And you can always drop a mailbag question for our weekly mailbags at BD Peacock, at Williamson NFL on Twitter. And, of course, drop a question anytime in the YouTube comments. Linebackers, Matt, how do you like this class overall? What do you think the draft strategy will be and where these guys are flying off the board? And who is your number one LB in 2024?
Yeah, I don't think it's a particularly impressive group. I mean, I think there's a lot of day three special teamers, some of which have some upside that in a couple of years we might be talking about. I don't think there's a round one player. Edgerrin Cooper from Texas A&M is my number one, but I don't think he sneaks into the first round. And this is maybe somewhat of a bigger topic, but I think it's become very, very clear over the last 5 years, decade, that drafting true off-the-ball linebackers usually doesn't pay off. And if it does, it's like in year 3. You know, these guys you would think would come into the league and make instant impacts like they used to. They just don't. I mean, I think their job is so much harder than at the college level. All the coverage responsibilities, all the communication responsibilities. You'd think it would be, taking on big guards at this level compared to the Big 12. It's not that. It's taking on Shanahan and, all the offensive minds that just manipulate them so much.
That's what it used to be. It used to be, you would read a scouting report. Oh, this guy can't take on fullbacks at the point of attack, can't take on guards. Right. And now it's the opposite. Now it's like everybody can run and hit and tackle. Now they're getting smaller and smaller. And it's like, who can cover? Who could be on the field for 3 downs? And it's not because of the early downs, it's because of the later downs now. And so for that reason, I think it's easier to mine starting caliber linebackers later because it's more difficult to scout these guys. And the NFL game is different than the college game in a lot of ways. So I think that makes linebackers even more difficult to scout. And when you're chasing the height, weight, speed guys in early rounds, we've just seen so many misses there because it's that coverage ability that's so hard. It's being smart and fitting into a defensive scheme that is getting more and more positionless now. So, to a certain degree, it's not quite the running back of defense, but it's close. And it's kind of been there where it's playing catch up as far as, what linebackers are getting paid. And there's still a few guys getting paid a lot and more than they're getting paid than running backs and tight ends are getting paid around the NFL. But there's a very few, there's a small number of those guys. And so it's always fascinating to me with the NFL draft, especially recently, it's those mid-round guys, round 3, 4, 5. You can find a starting caliber player there. And, and it might be a guy that just starts out on special teams and ends up being a really good player for your defense. And I think there is some of those in this class.
And I think so many mistakes are made because, as you mentioned, they draft height, weight, speed. Like, I hate the term instincts, and we've had that conversation. Luke Kuechly didn't come out of the womb instinctually hunting, running backs like great white sharks did with seals. Right. But I do think a lot of these guys are just athletes playing linebacker, and at college level, great. You can get away with that. You can take a false step and then track someone down. You take a false step against Shanahan, Kittle goes right past you for a touchdown. So it's almost like quarterback, where there's that graph where does your mind and your body intersect, and it's usually right around year 4 or 5. And if you drafted one high, you kind of wasted that rookie contract. Like, I'd rather go shopping on the open market in free agency at this position than draft one in round 1.
It's really just the story of the NFL in middle of the field players, running back, tight end, interior offensive linemen, linebackers, safeties. The athleticism part is a check mark. Are you athletic enough to play, or are you going to be out of the league because you just can't move at the level you need to? And then everything else is upstairs.
They have to be above a bar in terms of athleticism, but that doesn't mean they should push them up around,
Extra credit.
Credit. There you go. Right. I mean, you have to have over the limit. I have Edgerrin Cooper number 1. I mean, he reminds me of a Colt, dome player playing a lot of zone, long arm.
An Indianapolis Colt or the animal? Like
an Indianapolis Colt. But in a way, the animal, too. He's not quite a full-grown thoroughbred yet either,
Is it because he's Edgerrin, and that's why he reminds you of a Colt?
I hadn't thought of that. I was just thinking of length, zone, the traits people are looking for now. But he does play a little out of control. He's a good blitzer, changes directions well, but isn't special that way.
Good player. It really feels like he's going to be the number 1 linebacker off the board out of Texas A&M, 6'2", 230, has the traits, has the athleticism you're looking for, and you hope he can cover. But again, like, you start to go through this, and we've talked about it. Like, what are the negatives? Maybe how quick he reacts to things he's seeing, which is exactly what we're talking about. The guy that runs and chases the best, has the cleanest look as far as an athlete goes. Is that the best linebacker in the draft? I don't know. We'll find out.
Yeah. I mean, what does that, and even if he is, what does that cost? I mean, is that the 35th pick in the draft when you're turning up versus Phil McConkey? Give me Phil McConkey, or for Zach Frazier, give me Zach Frazier,
or Lad McConkey.
Or him too. Yeah, that'd be a good one too.
They're not related, by the way, right?
They're not even related. Everyone in the world thinks they are.
I was like, well, this McConkey has to be related to the only other McConkey I've ever heard of, who is also an NFL player, right? But actually, they're not related.
He's the most miscast player I've ever seen by the public. And I just did it. I called him who people think his dad is. It's not even his dad. And he's not Wes Welker or Edelman at all. I mean, he's closer to Tyler Lockett than he is those guys. I mean, no one has been more stereotyped than Phil's not son, Lad.
Not nephew. I bet they're related at some point down the line. But I mean, come on, how many McConkeys can there be? Probably in
NFL receivers named McConkey.
Probably in Ireland, there's a whole bunch of McConkeys that I don't know about. But
running routes like crazy.
So this isn't a wide receiver podcast. We're talking linebackers here, but we got some time today because we're only doing one position in some other interesting.
Not a great position either, to be honest.
About wide receivers. Speaking of wide receivers, this contract is kind of wild with Stefon Diggs. But as far as Lad McConkey goes, I saw a side by side of combine testing, height, weight, speed with Garrett Wilson. It's almost identical. 5'11",
I bet.
180 something, 4.39. 36-inch vertical. It was all about the same. I think Garrett Wilson has a little bit better, longer arms. So there is some length concerns with McConkey, which is why everyone wants to put him in the slot. And he will be awesome in the slot. So you should use him in the slot if you get him. But he's not Wes Welker. Is the point. So I totally agree with you there.
Yeah. So all right, should we
Payton
move on
Wilson,
here?
Out of North Carolina State's number 2. I mean, 6'4", 230. He blew up the combine. Injury concerns here though.
Yeah, that's the thing is, like, when I do these lists, they're all on Steelers.com. I can't really factor in how would I ding him for injuries because I don't know. So I say that in the write-up, without exact knowledge of Wilson's medical situation, which is extensive. But if you just watch the tape and you analyze the player that aside, he's probably closer to number 1 than he is number 3. I mean, he's 6'4". His tape is phenomenal. He was one of the best defensive players in all college football last year. He's a force on the field. He does have, quote, instincts and anticipation and things like that. But the medical is massively concerned. And he has unusually short arms for somebody that's 6'4", even for someone that's like 6'1".
Really interesting. Yeah, with the
T-Rex.
And for a linebacker, it's important. You need to corral ball carriers and tackle them. And sometimes, hand size, arm length, hand strength, and those kind of things can be a factor in whether or not you are a good tackler. So Edgerrin Cooper, for example, he ran 4.51 at the combine at 230 pounds, 6'2", prototype, 34-inch arms, which is really long. And then you go to Payton Wilson, who blazed 4.43 at the combine at 230 pounds, almost 6'4", but smaller hands, 9 inches, and 30.5 inch. So we're talking 3.5 inches per arm, right?
That's a big deal, right?
6 inches of tackling, so the wingspan is 80.25 for Edgerrin Cooper. It's 75.
And the guy's 6'4",
right?
It's unusually short. And the tackling part's important. Like a defensive lineman, you do take on blocks, and you'd like to get your hands on them before they get their hands on you. I mean, not always at the line of, sometimes it's off the ball. But the other thing too is I kind of mentioned the Colts thing. Like Leonard and Okereke and those guys, when they drop into zones, it's like a Duke basketball team zone. I mean, there's just not many throwing lanes with all that length.
I do think, though, that Payton Wilson, the injury stuff's kind of been baked into his rankings everywhere.
Right.
I think you have more hype as probably the one first-round guy at linebacker because of the combine, because of his production, if it wasn't for the injury stuff. So we'll 100%. See how that ends up shaking out and where he actually falls. But as of now, it feels like there's not going to be any first-round linebackers. What about the tier breaks in this class? A little deeper into the top linebackers and a couple linebacker sleepers to watch out for in this draft as well next. Today's episode of Peacock and Williamson is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. It's the formula for winning championships, and it's also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights. Maybe you just need some jumper cables or wiper blades. Whatever it is for your vehicle, whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. It's super easy. You got a big green check mark that tells you whether or not that part will fit your vehicle. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home that W. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Who's your third linebacker in this class, Matt? And where's the tier break? Is it after the top two guys? Is it after the top three guys? Are these guys all kind of just grouped together as maybe day two prospects here?
I think the top three are probably in a tier. There really wouldn't be a tier one guy. I think these two are all tier two guys. I mean, okay. I know that's not how tiers work. I mean, you put guys in the top tier. But there's no Roquan in this draft. But I do think Colson, Wilson, and Cooper, you could make a case at least for any of them being number one. This guy has good size. He grew up in Haiti. You would think he'd be kind of a work in progress as a linebacker, but he started 36 games for the Wolverines on a great defense, a Ravens-like defense. He's the communicator, and he's not a superstar athlete, but he's good enough. I mean, I think he'll be a B minus starter at the next level, which I mean that is a compliment.
Yeah, Junior Colson, Michigan, 6'2", 238 pounds. He did not run at the combine. I don't know what his pro day. Do you have his pro day number?
I don't. That's a great question. He doesn't look slow on tape, but I don't think he's going to blow it up either.
Great feet. You would think he is, somebody who's going to run well. And you never know why someone didn't work out the combine. And by the way, you guys can read all about the write-ups here for these draft classes and these rankings at Steelers.com that Williamson does. The note here I didn't know about Junior Colson is that he grew up in Haiti with a soccer background. That's why he's got those great feet.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, but he's played enough football that he's got it under him. And I love that he's kind of in charge of Michigan's defense. I mean, that's a complex defense. So above the neck, he sure seems to have it. I do wonder about his athletic testing, but I doubt it would be terrible,
So Ladd
guy worries me.
Ladd McConkey's not related to Phil, but I think Jeremiah Trotter Jr. is related to Jeremiah Trotter, if I'm not mistaken.
I think so. I think him and Senior are father and son. And If his last name was Peacock, would we be clamoring about him so much? And he went to Clemson, and they've been pumping out linebackers, and he's good, but he's got a little bit of I know this is an extreme example, the Zach Thomas, Sam Mills feel, where he just looks small out there, and he doesn't make as many plays as those guys. And I'm not ripping on those two dudes, but those two wouldn't be as effective nowadays as they were 20 years ago either. He just kind of looks small, but he does kind of have the son of a linebacker feel for the game. You don't see many wasted steps. He does communicate well, seems to see the game well, but I think there'll be times when defensive coordinators and linebacker coaches are going to want more athletically from him.
Well, he is small. So small and slow is usually a bad combination.
Right.
Your draft stock, 6 feet even, 228 pounds. Back in the day, that's a safety. This is a linebacker now we're talking about.
True.
31 and a half, not the longest arms, but, not problematically short based on his height. Still longer arms than the 6'4" Payton Wilson there. The only thing he did at the combine as far as athletic testing was a 3-cone, which was actually really good. 7.13. It was there only 3 guys ran the 3-cone at the combine. I'm guessing they're the 3 guys that thought they were going to do well at it, and he tied.
It was
for
late at night too. They don't want to do it.
Right. And then 21 bench press reps, which was second among linebackers. So the things he did do,
short arms.
He did great, but I would guess that the things he didn't do, he probably wouldn't have done great in. So that's why he didn't run the 40 and some other things. So interesting player, Jeremiah Trotter, and I don't know even where to rank these guys. It gets so difficult because now it's just like you're in the candy shop. Do you like chocolate? Do you like vanilla? What style do you want? You're picking and choosing what style of player you want at this point, I think, in the draft at linebacker.
I think he's pretty safe. I just don't think he's ever going to light the world on fire. This next guy's a little more variance. Cedric Gray from North Carolina.
Cedric Gray's an interesting one because he's fast. The way he runs, my comp for him when I was watching him, because of not necessarily because of the speed, even though he's fast, but just the way he runs is T-1000. Remember the Terminator 2, the bad guy, guy. The way he runs, he's just like he's got this I am focused. My arms are pumping. I got this stride, and I'm going. And he can run down guys at the sideline, and he has that speed. But he's a little high cut and long legged in the short area too. So while he's fast and has range as a tackler, I do kind of question his short area stuff. Will it hurt him in the passing game? Because usually you would see a guy who's athletic and fast and 6'1.5", 234 pounds. And I think he ran 4.6 at the combine. Let me double check what he 4.64 40-yard dash at the combine, 1.59 in the 10-yard split. Nice long arms. He looks good and looks athletic, 35.5-inch vert, 10-foot broad jump. All good testing numbers. Short area is the one area I'd worry about him. But again, you're drafting him in probably the 4th round.
Yeah, and he'll probably be an awesome special teamer. I wonder if he sneaks into day 2, maybe, just because he's he has better traits than a lot of these dudes.
Yeah, kind of late top 100 player.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, or early 4th, it's not much difference. But yeah, I mean, to me, I'm interested in that neighborhood, especially if I have a veteran holding down the fort. He is definitely a false step guy. He's got a little bit of his hair on fire, good and bad. Side note, I mean, I was at the combine, obviously, with the Steelers, and I don't go to the podium with these guys, but I guess Gray has this huge Troy Polamalu tattoo on him. He was urging all the Steeler folks to draft me. I'm like, oh, you better learn about this guy. It might be after his first contract, but someday he's going to be a Steeler.
Yeah, there you go. You see it in the way he plays. Yeah, he plays with his hair on fire.
Yeah, you can see him patterning it after Polamalu. Yep.
Were there any players that just missed your top 5 linebackers? Cedric Gray out of North Carolina there was number 5. And who are your favorite sleepers in this linebacker class?
A guy I like a lot that maybe if I were to redo this, I might even sneak him in at 5. Now, probably not over Wallace, but or not over Gray, but it's Trevin Wallace from Kentucky. He's another one that is not a take-on player, but he's got a lot of range. He's a good tackler. He tested well. I'm a fan of what he does. I like the way he plays the game as well. I mean, he's got some aggressiveness to him. So he would probably be my just miss guy. I'm looking through a list here to see. I mean, a sleeper that's interesting just on traits is the dude from Washington who's got more vowels in his name than I care to pronounce. I mean, he looks like a massive project, special teamer while he learns. And then the dude, go ahead. Yeah.
Edefon Olafashio, I believe is how you pronounce
That's
that one.
pretty
He's
well
a
done
really
by you.
interesting one. Yeah,
He really is.
athletic. He looks like that former safety bulked up type of a build. Special teams guy right away. I love him on day 3. He ran 4.56. He's 6 feet and a half, 236 pounds. Really interesting player. 39.5-inch vertical. So that day 3, you're looking for an athlete who can start on special teams and maybe become something. Has athleticism. You would think would be able to be a good coverage guy in the NFL. I like that one a lot. Olafashio out of Washington.
Yeah, a lot to work with. The sleeper I wrote up for the site was Steel Chambers from Ohio State.
I mean, you're doing an article for Steelers.com. How do you not put Steel Chambers in there?
Exactly.
Sleeper linebacker.
And there aren't many sleepers out of Ohio State, but this is an old recruiting trick: is you bring in a bunch of running backs and you turn them into linebackers and strong safeties, and that's what he is. He's still developing as a linebacker. He was a high school running back that was recruited by Ohio State.
A couple of their names I want to throw out there as day 3 guys, and that's where I like to attack this class and most linebacker classes. Marist Liufau from Notre Dame is an interesting player, and he plays kind of upright, but he'll hit you, but he hits you with his entire front of his body. You know how most tacklers kind of are leaned over? He just runs into you like he's running into a brick wall. But he's fun to watch, a fun player to watch. I don't know what to do with him. I don't know if he's but he's got enough traits to be a good NFL player. I think a linebacker and a special teamer early in his career. And similarly, if you want a good athlete who literally was the former safety turned linebacker out of Oregon, day 3 guy, not getting a lot of pub, but worked out really well at his pro day. We're talking 4.5 speed. Jamal Hill out of Oregon.
That's a good one.
He's only 6 feet, 225 pounds right now, 220s, bulking up to play linebacker as a former safety, but has those coverage skills. And if you're looking for a sleeper guy that I could see being a better player in a couple of years in the NFL and being a steal in this class, he's one of my favorites right now.
So real quick, I think Hill's a great one here, but it just made me think, and this should have been something we talked at the beginning of the show, a lot of these safety turn linebackers back in the day, it was like, I don't have anything to worry about with coverage. That doesn't even mean you're good enough in coverage just because you used to be a safety for Texas Tech or Baylor.
It might mean you're bad at coverage, which is why they moved you away from safety.
Right. And you're closer to the ball, and it's a lot different to be a free safety and see things develop, think it through, break on the ball, as opposed to Tyreek Hill's running, a jet sweep behind the line of scrimmage and Kelsey's coming at me and I got to think now, things happen quick there.
You can be a really good athlete, but not be good in coverage and just get juked out of your shoes by guys who are less athletic than you at tight end.
But I do think there's a scouting mistake made that former safeties must be the best coverage linebacker you've ever seen. Not anymore.
All right, that's the linebacker class in 2024. Who are your favorites? Let us know at BD Peacock at Williamson NFL. Next, we're going to talk contracts. Stefon Diggs redoing his deal with the Houston Texans starts to make this trade look kind of odd for Houston. Jordan Mailata extension as well with the Eagles next. This episode of Peacock and Williamson is brought to you by Robinhood. And did you know that even if you have a 401k for retirement, you can still have an IRA? Robinhood has the only IRA that gives you a 3% boost on every dollar you contribute when you subscribe to Robinhood Gold. But get this, now through April 30th, Robinhood is even boosting every single dollar you transfer in from other retirement accounts with a 3% match. That's right, no cap on the 3% match. Robinhood Gold gets you the most for your retirement thanks to an IRA with 3% match. This offer is good through April 30. Get started at robinhood.com/boost. Subscription fees apply. And now for some legal information. Claim as of Q1 2024, validated by Radius Global Market Research. Investing involves risk, including loss. Limitations apply to IRAs and 401ks. 3% match requires Robinhood Gold for 1 year from the date of first 3% match. Must keep Robinhood IRA for 5 years. The 3% match on transfers is subject to terms and conditions. Robinhood IRA available to U.S. customers in good standing. Robinhood Financial LLC, member SIPC, is a registered broker-dealer. What? Do you give up a second-round pick for 1 year of a player, Matt? That's where I'm starting to rethink this thing. And what are is Stefon Diggs fleecing the Houston Texans, even more so than, say the Buffalo Bills as far as the trade? Because as far as when the trade went down, I was like, okay, makes sense. Future 2, Stefon Diggs, Houston, cap space, love it. Bills getting away from, need cap space. Okay, I start to see what's happening here.
Get
With this
2 years out of him, maybe more, kind of like the Keenan Allen trade, right.
Makes perfect sense. But now there's an added incentive here with this contract and a restructured contract, which essentially the Houston Texans are letting Diggs out of the last 2 years of or 3 years of his newly signed, by the way, 4-year, 90 whatever $1 million contract it is. So essentially, this is what's happening now with the Houston Texans and the new reworked deal for Stefon Diggs, according to Adam Schefter. As part of the Buffalo-Houston trade, the Texans wiped out the final 3 years on Diggs' contract, giving him an ability to become a free agent after this season. Texans also took the $3.5 million guaranteed to Diggs next season and moved it into this season, giving him a raise and assuring him of $22.52 million in guaranteed money in 2024. But if Diggs plays the way he wants, and Houston hopes he will hit free agent market next offseason with the ability to make it count, Houston now anticipates getting the best version of Stefon Diggs. So the way he worded that is weird.
Yeah,
it's like Houston saying, "Oh, we want to
keep
make
him
sure
motivated. Yeah,
he's motivated, and we don't care about having him after a year. But are you going to give up a future second-round pick for 1 year of a player, even if it's a really good player like Stefon Diggs, who is motivated?" This is kind of an oddball situation. Houston, do they think they're going to re-sign him anyway? They're not going to get.
They don't mention the franchise tag. Are they allowed the
They can't get a comp pick either. That's not part of this formula because
right.
They voided that contract. So there's no comp pick in this if they were to let him walk after the season either.
So if you're Diggs, I think you're thrilled about this, although his contract's extensive. I mean, you probably knew he was never going to see those exact dollars anyway. I mean, he'd have to be back to being an elite player to get that kind of money. But he probably looks at a guy like Mike Evans and says, I can do what he did and hit the open market and get another payday at my age. I'm good enough to do that. I mentioned Keenan Allen. I wrote or read Matt Harmon's write-up on Diggs, and he really compared him to more of a slot, intermediate Keenan Allen type in his career, which I think is a really good way of looking at this, with Nico and Dell on the outside, but there's some position flexibility. But is he going to catch 100 balls in that offense? I don't know. But I think where you're getting at is the most interesting angle is this now worth it for the Texans? If it's truly a 1-year rental, maybe you could franchise them. That's the part I'm a little gray about,
And maybe that's why, because part of the trade, Houston got a 5th-round pick back. Maybe that was them saying, we're going to redo this thing with Stefon Diggs. Mm-hmm. That's our comp pick that we're getting for letting him walk, but we're giving you the second for him. Kind of like working the entire thing together.
Yeah.
And obviously the Houston Texans had thought this through. This wasn't like all of a sudden they traded for him and all of a sudden they're like, oh, now let's do this thing. This was all, I'm sure, part of the whole deal. But yeah, I don't know. 1 year, I wouldn't give up a future second for 1 year of Stefon Diggs.
I don't think I would either. And I do think it's noteworthy, we mentioned this when the trade broke, that Nico's up after the year too. Like, knowing what I know today, I would rather give the money to Collins than I would to Diggs. If I choose.
That's part of the plan. Yeah, it's like, well, we got to pay the other guy, so we just need a short-term, big money, whatever. That's fine. Then we're going to pay another guy and draft another guy to develop with CJ.
Yeah. I mean, I know they have money. I mean, they spent a lot this offseason, and their cap's not bad going forward.
Jordan Mailata, congratulations. Former rugby player that turned himself into a star left tackle in the NFL. A 3-year, $66 million extension for the Eagles and left tackle Jordan Mailata. Just, not much to talk about with this, but with the draft coming, like there's a lot of rocks to turn over and find NFL players. And Jordan Mailata.
Yeah, it's cool.
The fact that he was a 7th-round pick, right? The fact that he was drafted,
so. Yeah.
He had never played football, and it was just like, well, this guy so perfectly fits what a good football player should be. Let's draft him for a 7th-round pick and develop him. And man, he developed.
Absolutely. I mean, everyone knows that their offensive line coach, Jeff Stoutland's kind of become legendary at this point, and this is maybe his best work. I mean,
Outland University, they call it for his coaching.
That's good stuff. Yeah. When Mike Munchak was here, they called it Munchak's Millionaires because he'd take all the free agents and turn Chris Hubbard into a $6 million player or whatever. And Mailata is way more talented than those type of dudes. Couple notes here. I respect what the Eagles do offensive line wise, not just Stoutland, but as an organization. Kelsey just moved on. Lane Johnson's about the end of his line, although he's playing great. So they gave Landon Dickerson a huge contract and Mailata a huge contract, basically thinking we've had 2 stalwarts for a decade. Now we should have 2 new stalwarts for a decade and continue to build around those guys. I think that's awesome, while Lane plays out the rest of his career. Now, I'm not a no-line coach, but I still think the most unnatural thing, no matter what their athletic ability is in all of football, is pass protection. Like, I beg someone to stand up in their living room right now and try to kick slide with your butt sort of low. You're just going to fall into the coffee table and call 911. It's really hard to do.
Try to move quickly, but also be in a powerful stance because someone else that's 260 pounds is coming at you, and you have to stop them in either direction or going right through your chest.
Yeah. I mean, everyone listen, try to pass block versus air right now and have someone film it. You will look so bad. You'd look better running an out route. Anything would be better than that. It's a very unnatural move.
Yeah. And especially if you're weighing 3 bills.
Yeah, I mean, yes, he's a rugby player, but he didn't practice pass protection.
One more quick note on Stefon Diggs and money, by the way. His first order of business with his new paycheck from the Houston Texans is to spend $100,000 of it to buy the jersey number 1 from I think it was Jimmy Ward. So yeah, Stefon Diggs going to be wearing number 1 for the Houston Texans. That cost $100K.
Okay. Sounds like a fair price. If I'm Jimmy Ward, I don't know how attached he was to it, but I'll take the $100,000, take Diggs out to dinner, maybe.
That's I saw somebody on Twitter was talking about how he would, I think it was Brad Spielberger, PFF Brad, who's got a new job now. He's going to be working for the agent side of things, I think, as far as contracts and stuff. So congrats.
Oh, is he? He does good work.
One of my first orders of business with my new clients is to tell them to pick the most sought after numbers so you can get a little extra income on the side and start selling that number off. So
12,
0, 1, start
there. There you go. Those early ones are good. Yeah. 12 for quarterbacks. I mean, everyone wants to be Brady or Mahomes' number probably will be popular coming up.
Yeah.
No, 1 and 0 are great ones. Get them
Absolutely. Now. And there's a lot of zeros still available.
Oh yeah.
Thanks everybody for making us your first listen on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We got mock drafts. We are neck deep in draft season.
Sure.
Your questions at BD Peacock at Williamson NFL in the YouTube comments. Make sure you're subscribed, and Matt and I will be back Monday right here. Peacock and Williamson.